Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Dr. Greg Eckel and What the Health. And today we are talking breathwork and beyond, the Giovanni Bartolomeo journey. Pardon me. That rolls right off the top, right off
Great
the
job.
tongue, Giovanni. Um, I want to introduce you to him first and give a great intro. He's the driving force behind Elemental Rhythm Breathwork, a revolutionary approach to unlocking one's full potential through the power of breath. And I can't wait to share this with you all. As the founder of Elemental Wellness in Toronto and co-founder of the Personal Development School, Giovanni is not just an entrepreneur, but a life adventurer with a passion for experiential learning. Giovanni's elemental rhythm breathwork transcends traditional practices, offering a profound journey of breath, movement, music, and meditation. His mission is to empower individuals to embrace happiness and health on demand while inspiring them to become facilitators and coaches. Welcome aboard, Giovanni.
Thank you. That was an amazing intro.
Well, you have an amazing story and an amazing message to share. You know, before we got on the air, we were talking about kind of things coming full circle. And maybe that's a great place to start with. When we talk about breath work and the Giovanni story, how you've taught some of my friends, and I found you're the origin of the teaching for the breath work. And you know elemental rhythm, you've got a mission here. What's the genesis of that?
Yeah. It's interesting because breathwork kind of just like stumbled into my life unexpectedly and caught my attention in a way. And I may be the origin of elemental rhythm, but I'm just kind of like a little cog in the wheel that's putting my spin on something that's been around forever. Like
Yeah.
I'm more of like, I think, classify as a curator rather than a creator. Like I curate these experiences. I'm taking from those who were the masters before me, and these things that kind of stood out through some of my teachers, and found ways to put it together that really worked for me and seemed to resonate for others. And I never really know where to start the story because there's a lot of places we can start. But it was sometime after my first plant medicine experience. I went down to South America and drank ayahuasca for the first time. If your listeners aren't familiar with that, it's a brew from the Amazon that when I first heard about, claims to have these healing properties that mental, physical, emotional healing properties, and you go on these visionary journeys deep within yourself. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Let me try that out. And that changed everything for me, and I could talk probably hours just upon that. I actually made a documentary about plant medicines after coming back because, I thought people need to hear about this. And I started telling
Mm,
everyone. They looked at me like I was crazy. I had 3 heads, and I had worked on all these kind of like arguments to share with them, and made a
yeah.
documentary. It's called Psyched Out. It's free on
Okay.
YouTube. So anyways, after that, I started realizing more and more how out of alignment I was
Mm,
growing up. Net worth and self-worth was like equal for me. I grew up in an area very, like keeping up with the Joneses. And if you don't make money, you're
mm,
not important or you're not special. And, I had this drive to be successful. And after that experience, I started questioning a lot of the things I did. And as the years went on, I started realizing that it wasn't doing it for me anymore. I finally started making a little bit of money. I had a decent car, bought a house, got married, all the things that was supposed to bring happiness. And I just felt this unfulfillment.
mm,
And, but after, a couple of years back with that first experience, I started just looking for new things
yeah.
that was sparked my curiosity. Watching football, drinking beer just wasn't doing it for me anymore. Going out partying on Friday nights and stuff like that. So I started going to like yoga festivals. I would go to like any kind of, you name it, like events. And what we started doing was we started gathering people together, and we would just like get 15, 20 people, and we put stuff on a big screen, like a cool video. We talk about interesting things like meditation, or we'd watch, instant heart math videos, and like all these cool things just to spark conversation. And I remember looking for the next video. I see this video of Wim Hof,
Mm,
Superhuman. I think it was one of the specials he did with BBC. BBC or TLC, one of them. Anyways, I was
Mhm.
like, wow, like there's something special here. Like I felt it. You know when you get those like those visceral kind of like sparks where like you just like, okay, there's something here for me. It was one of those. And I told my wife, I showed her the video. I'm like, I'm gonna meet this guy one day. And literally within a month, I had him on a podcast. I launched a podcast at the time, and he was still not. He was on his trajectory on his way into the super stardom in the health
The
and wellness space.
Iceman mythos. Yes.
I
Yes.
caught him at the right time, and we became friends. And he invited me to a training. And when I got to that training, um, I wasn't really sure why I was going. I thought it was gonna be cool to take a picture with Wim, in a mountain, my
Mhm.
shorts. Might be good for my Instagram game at the time, which I was still kind of like hustling
Right.
and thought was important. Um, and when we sat there, we had about 30 or 40 people, all different walks of life, different backgrounds, pretty competitive, age range probably 30 up to like, late 50s, maybe a few like in their early 60s. And each person going around the circle sharing who they are and why they're there and the transformation that they had gone through from daily breath work, going out in nature, cold exposure. Like I'm talking like addiction, chronic disease, depression, physical like transformations, like you name it. And I was just like, whoa, infertility, like each one was like more and more like shocking, anecdotal, it's their experience, but
Sure.
they were sharing, this is my story. Since I started doing this is what transformed in my life. And I was like, wow. And it got to me, and I was like, I felt like the biggest imposter. I was like, "Oh, I just thought it'd be a cool experience to come hang out with you with you all for a week." And this was like the first ever facilitator training for that Wim Hof did in the States. But what happened was towards the later half of that trip, and we had climbed mountains and jumped in frozen lakes, and there was one point where all of these instructors to be got in this pretty much just under frozen lake. And I
Mm.
remember it had this silt at the bottom, so your feet would sink into it. I feel like the silt was even colder than the water, and no one wanted to be the first guy out, like macho kind of like, okay, I'm not going
Yeah.
to be the first one. And we probably all stayed there a little bit too long. Couldn't feel my feet for like 45 minutes after
Wow.
that. And I thought, this is another phone call to my wife, hey babe, I really screwed up this time. I'm gonna have to like cut my toes off. But they came back. And so this last experience, last couple of days, I'm at this point, I'm like a Wim follower. I'm like, okay, whatever this guy tells me to do, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it. So he leads us on this breathing journey, which he's playing a drum and he's chanting. I don't even know what he's chanting. And we're just following him. He's saying, breathe faster, hold. And it kept on going deeper and deeper till all of a sudden I feel this vibration like rolling through my body, and I'm just like,
Mm.
what is going on? Almost like a jet was about to take off. And it did. And if within the next thing I remember is like I'm out of my body, I'm floating around the top of this 20-foot log cabin, just staring down at myself. And
Mhm.
I had a lot of psychedelic experience, from plant medicine, but this was something totally different. I was so clearly I could see myself. Like I was literally there, and I got scared for a moment, and I snapped back into my body and started crying uncontrollably.
Mm.
Like for a moment I was like, oh man, don't be that guy that's crying. And then a split second later, I was like, I don't care. Just like
Yeah.
cried and cried. Probably the first time I'd cried in maybe like 20 years. And it felt so good. Like I was releasing all of this expectation I put on myself for trying to be successful, for trying to
Mm.
support everyone, for feeling like if I failed, it was the end of the world. Like all of this was like coming out. And I was like having this sort of conversation, like, it's okay, it's okay. And cried and cried, like one of those like booger cries, like your
Yeah.
like 5-year-old would have had.
So good. Yeah.
And I walk away, and I was just like, the next couple of days kind of integrating like what happened there. And I was just like, wow, I need to understand more about that. Like there was something that happened there that was like one of the most special experiences of my life, like unexplainable also. And that's what kind of sparked me to get into breath work. And
Mm.
so I went back to Toronto. I was looking for any teacher, anyone that knew anything about breath work. I wanted to learn from them. I didn't care
Yeah.
what the modality was, Kriya, Kundalini, transformational breath, holotropic. And I just started this self-study of trying to get back to that space. I was like, how do I get back there? Because I want to explore
Mm.
that space. And it started happening. I started using the rhythm of music and, just guiding myself. And then I found that adding some specific meditations afterwards allowed me to go even deeper, because I can explain kind of the science behind it, but the rhythmic breathing changes the brain waves, and it changes the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is where the ego and the analytical mind resides. So when that kind of shuts off, going into the subconscious
Mhm.
mind becomes much easier. I was able to guide myself into my heart through gratitude, through some things I've learned at the Institute of Heart Math. And it was like working, and I was getting there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to share it with friends, family, because I was
Sure.
already doing Wim Hof breathing, and they're like, yeah, well, whatever, Gio, let's do it. And it started happening. It started happening again and again. And it's just like, it just happened. I never intended it to be anything. I never thought like, hey, I'm gonna start a breathwork business or whatever. But what I will tell you is, like, the first time I shared that with someone and they had the experience, I
Yeah.
felt a sense of fulfillment I never felt ever in my 20 years previous in business. It was a
Mhm.
different feeling that was, I could just sense like how important that feeling was versus the importance of winning or making some money or doing a great business deal. Like, there was no comparison. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to support my family doing this, but I'm just going to keep doing it, and allow things to figure themselves out. And they did, and they
Yeah.
just kind of, like, one thing led to another. So that's kind of the short, long story of
I love
how I
it.
got into breath work. And
Yeah.
then I just started learning, like there's like a whole spectrum. There's these deep cathartic experiences that are amazing for um, healing emotional wounds and programs in our subconscious mind. But then there's like the functional side of breathing, which is also equally as powerful. Can help you to like side effects of overbreathing is like probably a list, probably 20 pages long. Like one of those like crazy drug commercials, like, hey, side effects may include this. Is
Yeah.
that's what overbreathing will do to people. And Western medicine, you should just give them a pill for that. And I wish we would teach kids in school how to breathe properly, and people how to breathe properly, which I'm sure you're an advocate of. Like, there's so many things that people can be educated on, whether it's like eating, exercise, diet, nutrition, mental health exercises. And I started going down that path, and it was equally as exciting, like normalizing the breath and what can happen from there. So, anyways, I'll stop there. I'm
It's
rambling now.
massive. No, that was great. And so it sounds like it found you. The breath work
Absolutely.
found
Yeah.
you. And that aspect, I mean, it is you said, you kind of that tingly feeling you feel where, I call it the spidey sense of the hair stands up on my arms and the back of my neck. And I know, hey, this is really important. Like, I just had that with you sharing your story. Is like, no, this is really important. Number one, I really advocate for people to not stop breathing. So, right, we can all agree behind that, all right, on that topic. But proper breath, people don't even understand that. Like, they're not breathing properly. We had a woman in our sound room. We do a lot with sound and light healing in the centers. And she came out of there. Now, it was a sound bath, but we also have a breath work coach. And she said, I just learned from Amanda, I haven't been breathing properly. And she's like, I feel so calm and relaxed. And that component of over breathing and having too much carbon dioxide in your system, creating anxiety and nervousness and restlessness and, all kinds of oxygen deprivation states. Um, Nervousness, the stress that it puts on the nervous system. So this is really, it is profound. It's profound technology on all of the different arrays of the breath work. And I think it's interesting, right? You found it as a heightened sense of consciousness, really, and facilitating that environment for other trainers of breath work. And I'm guessing you have folks come together and do this work together.
Yeah,
Uh,
we found too that there's something special about the group experience, where it kind of like amplifies the energy of the
mhm.
experience, and and heart math did a lot of studies on this. Like, if 3 or 4 people went to heart coherence, they could bring the next person in without them even doing anything, right?
Yeah.
And interesting story. I'm not sure the roots or if it's even true, but in Latin, the word spira, spirit, is to breathe. And
Mm.
inspire, expire, like like all of these words. And they said back in the day, people were doing breath work together, and they were having these direct experiences with God, and the
Mhm.
church did not like that. And so they called it a conspiracy against the church. And that was where the word
Wow.
conspiracy came from. These people, this is what they say, this is what the legend has.
Yes.
But so in a way, I guess I'm a conspiracy, activist or whatever you would call it. Um,
Co-spiring. Yes.
yeah.
I
And I
love it.
want to, I want to touch a bit on the science because it's really interesting, the carbon dioxide, oxygen kind of paradigm or relationship. Because initially, I was always taught carbon dioxide is a waste gas, and
Mm,
growing up, I heard that a lot. And what's happening is when people are over breathing, they're actually blowing off too much CO2. And CO2 is actually what delivers the oxygen to the cells. So when we start normalizing our breath, we're actually allowing our CO2 to increase so that each breath in delivers more oxygen to like our brain, to our cells, to our muscles. And when we're over breathing and the carbon dioxide doesn't get that much, we're actually starving our brain of oxygen. So even like over breathing, like these exercises,
yes.
it's actually reducing oxygen in the brain. It's going into the bloodstream. The red blood cells are holding onto it because it's on the carbon dioxide. And then once that the carbon dioxide builds up, it'll start delivering it. And I'll tell you a quick story. Dr. Buteyko. Have you heard of Dr. Buteyko?
Yes. Yes.
Russian scientist. And, he was initially studying breathing for sending Russian astronauts to the moon. He was like, okay, we need to learn about as much about this and the different, levels of
Yes.
gases. And he also worked in, I think, like cardiology or something like that, where he was like with patients that had like cardiovascular issues. And he started noticing that those that breathed as people were getting sicker, their breathing got shallower, quicker up into their chest. And when people were able to slow their breathing down, they got better.
Mm,
And he started realizing like there was a correlation between the volume of air they would breathe. So it's not just the speed, it's also the volume, and the carbon dioxide level in their blood. So he actually made a chart, and if someone would get to say 7.5% carbon dioxide in their blood, it was just like the highest, the peak. They could
mm,
not get sick. Nothing could touch them. Like
wow.
any chronic disease, it was impossible for them to get. There's a normal range that basically anything above that, you get into like super health. So the normal range was about 6.5% carbon dioxide and a control pause of 60 seconds. So I'll tell you guys what the control pause is. If you want to try it, this is something that we can all do together. If you're listening around, just
Let's
make sure
do
you're
it.
not driving when you're doing it.
Yes.
So control pause basically measures like your ability to tolerate carbon dioxide. That's it. Okay. So it's best to do it first in the morning because you want to keep a stable. If you're marking this over time, you want it to be like a stable baseline. Because if you eat, if you exercise, if you have any stress, it'll
Yeah.
change. It'll just change your markers. So basically, you just sit up normally, and you'll take 3 or 4 normal breaths, just regular breaths in and out. And get my stopwatch out. Oh, I got a new watch. Actually, I got a stopwatch now. All right. So take 2 or 3 breaths, and we'll just take one more normal breath. Have a normal exhale, and then plug your nose. When I see you plug your nose, I'll start the timer. Okay. So normal in, normal out, and just plug your nose, and I'll start timing you. Okay. So we want to hold till we feel that first urge to breathe, whatever that is. So if we've held too long, we need to gasp for air after. So we're not going for max. We're going for that first real urge to breathe. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to check if you did this at home is that first breath, did you feel like you really had to breathe, or can you go back to normal breathing? So if that's the case, you have to have that awareness of like, okay, I went a little bit too far last time. That urge is a little bit too much. So now I didn't actually time you there. I pressed the wrong button. It's a new watch. But we could you can do it again after. And basically, depending on where you are, it will tell you how healthy you are. It'll give you this thing, this different ranges of different ailments that you'll have. As you work on improving that, you'll see your health improve. You'll see your mind become more clear, your ability to deal with stress improve, your athletic performance
Mm,
improve, all of these things. So that's on the functional side of CO2 tolerance, which I think is most important once you get the basic mechanics down.
sure.
Yeah.
That's great.
Rambling here, but
Wow.
yeah, I encourage all my clients is like you want to know your CP score, you want to keep track of it, and you'll just notice
Yeah.
like when you're really stressed, you get bad sleep, it's going to go down. I'd say it's just as important as HRV, if not more important.
Yeah, that's great. That's a pro tip right here. You heard it. You heard it here on What the Hell. Yes.
um, yeah, so And then, then there's just the daily practice. People ask me all the time, like, what do I do? Do I do breath work every day? Is it like, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
And I think the most important practice is just being aware of your breath,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
going back to the mechanics, like there's 5 basic mechanics. Nose, so breathing into your nose, the rate at which you breathe in, so slowing down your breaths per minute, being in a good rhythm. So you don't want to breathe quickly and then stop and then pause and breathe again. So it's a good rhythm. And the best rhythm, they say, is a short inhale, a little bit longer of an exhale, and a normal pause at the end. So it's kind
Mm.
of like rests. So like the system rests for a second or two. And most people don't do that. Most people are mouth breathing, breathing quickly, shallow into their chest. Next is depth and diaphragm. So deep doesn't mean big. Deep just means deep into your
Deep.
belly.
Ah, yeah.
And the diaphragm is just your belly. So we want to relax that. And part of the Buteko's process was when you're breathing, you have to learn how to relax your diaphragm. What has Western culture done over the last 20, 30 years? Is everyone wants chiseled abs,
Oh
hold it
yeah.
in
Yeah.
tight, like just really less like, and that's just wreaking havoc on our breathing system, which is compressing everything in there. So if you can do those things well and just be conscious of how you breathe, like you're going to see the quickest improvement in health that I've seen with people. It's like just starting to on the breathing mechanics.
I love it. And you do some work with heart math or measuring heart rate variability. Do you see folks increase their heart rate
Oh yeah.
variability within the breath work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting, on the functional side too, but sometimes on the emotional side, like someone will have a huge breakthrough in like one of those
Mm.
deeper breathing experience, like you
Mhm.
had, and then all of a sudden their heart rate variability is up like 5 points
Yeah.
consistently. Like they let go of something they're holding on to. Because remember, if we're holding on to something in the back of our subconscious that's just sitting there all the time, we don't even realize it, but it's our nervous system is kind of these fears, these worries, these beliefs about
On
ourselves.
guard. Yeah.
And so yeah, so I've seen changes like that, and we've even seen like crazy, again anecdotal, like people doing a single breathwork session and claiming to have healed like an autoimmune issue, like a digestive issue that
Mhm.
they've had for 10 years, and then followed up with me 2 or 3 months later just to let me know that they
It's
weren't
a
crazy. They weren't
yeah.
crazy, and that they can now drink beer and eat pizza. I'm like, listen, you don't want to be doing that. I guess after 10 years of not, a little bit here and there is okay. But
Yes.
like besides the point, it was like something happened,
Yeah.
and that's what intrigues me so much about this work.
It is so fascinating. I think about the breath of life, prana, life force energy, all of these things tied in together with everybody can do it. You don't need any gear. You don't need any special thing from the store. You can do it wherever you are. You know,
It's free
it's free.
once you learn it,
Yes, yeah. Once you learn it, and learning it properly. So speak into that. You have this school, Elemental Rhythm, and a style that is eclectic and filtered through Geo's apparatus and the gift out here to the world. How is it different or similar to other breath works?
Yeah, so like there's so many amazing breathworks out there. So I don't like to say mine is better or worse. It's just a
Sure.
different kind of flavor brand, like a music genre. We use a lot of music, and we use the rhythm of the music to help people breathe. When I was getting to breathwork, some of the ones that were just like, okay, just breathe deeply for an hour, I would be like in la la land, falling asleep. So the rhythm of the music really helps me to kind of keep focused and keep
Mm,
my scattered brain, focused when I was starting, especially.
sure.
A lot of breathwork and meditation has helped me to gain a lot more focus. So we have a lot of tracks we call guided experiences. So if you're just looking for a daily track, it'll take you through a little bit of breathing, help you get into that state, and then it will drop you into some sort of like meditation or some guided prompts that are going to help you to
Mhm.
focus your awareness on. So anywhere from 3 minutes all the way to like 60-minute experiences. And then we have some breathing fundamentals courses where we can teach you about, proper breathing. And we also talk a lot about the subconscious mind, and the power of the subconscious mind and how to really reprogram it. And what you're looking for as far as like core wounds, core beliefs that, there's about 18 of them when you whittle all our beliefs down to the core limiting beliefs. And it's amazing that when you can start highlighting, which ones are present in your life,
Yeah.
first to start seeing them everywhere, but then you can have a tool to reprogram them. And, and I share this because that was my process. Once I started learning about them, finding them where they showed up in my life, like fear of being alone or feeling unsafe, having no older brothers growing up and going into new school, and
Mm.
just I had this fear of being unsafe. And what does that drive me to be is like a successful entrepreneur. Money meant safety for me, and also being seen, which another one of my core wounds was like I am unseen, and then fear of being alone. Like they were all kind of intertwined. And as I was able to kind of see those beliefs and change them, and breathwork really helped a lot in being able to get there. Um, like your reality doesn't change as far as like what's happening, but your response to it does.
Mm.
Things that used to trigger you or scare you or upset you before, they just don't anymore because that belief is gone, right? And the way the mind kind of works is in layers, right? And your base layer is beliefs. And when we're born in our first 10 years of life or 8 years, when the brain is kind of like really growing and adapting, it's trying to keep you safe. So it's scanning everything. So it creates these beliefs. Something may happen. It's like, okay, all these beliefs form. On top of beliefs is thoughts. Based on our beliefs, something happens, we think, like we analyze it. Okay, was that good? Was that bad? Am I safe? Am I not? Do I judge this person? Like our thoughts is the next layer. And then after that is our emotions. So based on thought, we react. If it was good or if it's scary, we're gonna feel it in our body. And then we react, and we'll have it either an action or inaction, like freeze or fight or flight, or
Mhm.
go into like one of the positive responses. And so what I learned from one of my business partners, Tice Gibson, is like, if you can just get that belief level and change that, it'll cascade all the rest. It'll just change everything. And that's been the work, is like helping people to find where their beliefs are and how they can kind of
Mm.
transform it. So we have stuff like that at our website, and starting
Yes.
people off in that journey inward. So yeah,
I
that's
love it.
that's what we got there.
The answer truly does lie within. And I like to say I do a lot of nothing all day in our centers of just, deep presence, listening, reflection back. People tell us exactly what the medicine is that they need for them. And this is a beautiful gift to share. So, for everybody listening, we're going to have Giovanni on in the future. He hasn't committed to that, but I know we're going to have him back. And we're going to do some actual, experiential breath work with him to share, because it is and maybe we could do a little, if you're up for that, just impromptu, maybe just a little for people to experience it in a few minutes if it's possible, to share that, because a lot of folks are still maybe at this point in the podcast thinking, well, gosh, I breathe every day. Like, what's the story here, guys? Like,
Mhm.
it's this profound experience that you had um, with the Iceman of Wim Hof, and who has really done a great service of getting the information out and sharing. And if you feel like it's too brief of a time, we can also do it on another time.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it for sure.
Perfect.
Um, we can. Let me see here. Let me see what I got here. So yeah, I'll try to whip something together here. I got my playlist though, some royalty free music, so you can still share on YouTube and not get dinged for it. Also,
Excellent.
so one thing I'll say is if you go to our website, there's a free track. It's a 40-minute journey that if you want to go a little bit deeper and try it,
Right.
it's with Nessie Gomez. I'll give you the link to that. You can share it
Great.
on there. It's also on YouTube and Spotify. Like one of the things was like we just want to share this, like
Yeah.
put it out there. So that's a really awesome one that I collaborated with one of my favorite artists. Um, but let's do one round of breathing together.
Great.
And then I'll take you into a meditation. I just want to see if I can share my sound here. Mm. Oh, you have to allow me to share.
Yes. Here we go.
Okay. Peter.
Thanks for rolling with it.
Oh, why not?
Yes.
All right. Now let's just get the right song here. There we go.
And this component, as you're prepping, I know I totally put you on the spot. This is our responsibility, the dash, I'll put the response dash ability of creating our body batteries and our energy and our receptors. And, a lot of times on the show, I'm talking about just how miraculous this life is. And, this is such profound technology of breath work and sharing breath together. In Tibetan culture, they greet each other with their tongues out, and it's like as if it's the health of the being and the individual. And I think we're, as maybe cultures on the planet, of people on the planet Mother Earth, coming together with sharing of breath, this rhythmic patterning and coherence. It's really what I'm up to on the planet, is helping as many as I can with heart and brain coherence, and dropping into their heart spaces and creating from love. And I feel like this is a great tool to help support that.
Absolutely. Just do a quick sound check here. Can you just say one thing for me?
Yeah, I'll say one thing for you.
There you go. Now let me know if you can hear some music playing. Can you hear music? Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're just gonna roll with it. So
Perfect.
if you're listening along, you just want to sit up or even lay back, and we're gonna breathing in through our nose into our belly. We're gonna do one round. You may feel some tingling sensations in your hand, or any body sensations you feel are completely normal. If it worries you or bothers you, just slow it down. If you're not in great health, I wouldn't advise doing this, and work on your breathing mechanics first, and just make sure you're not doing this while driving. And also, you never want to do any breathwork practice like in water or in an area. If you were to feel dizzy or to pass out, you put yourself or someone else in danger. So that's really, really important to say off the bat. Otherwise, we're just going to focus on taking deep breaths in through our nose. Just practice all the way in into our belly. Just feel your belly expand. And when you exhale, just exhale through the mouth. Take a deep breath into the nose. And exhale through the mouth. You're going to be a little bit deeper. It's going to breathe into the belly and then up into the chest. Then exhale. Okay. So everything else, just follow along. Just about 5 minutes here, 3 or 5 minutes, okay? All right. Okay, so in, out, in, out, in, out. So just breathing the rhythm of the music. Pick it up a little bit here, a little bit faster. In, out, in, out. Keep going. Keep doing that rate. In, out. So controlled hyperventilation right now. Bring your awareness to your breath. Deep breath. Close your eyes. Feel into your body. Relax your shoulders. 30 seconds out. Crisp breathing. That needs to as quick as you can. We're going to take a deep breath all the way in. We're going to hold to the top. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All the way in. Hold it. When you exhale, I'm going to invite you to hum through your nose. I'll count you down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take a deep breath back in through our nose. Exhale through the mouth. Just do one more breathing cycle. So in, 2, 3, 4, out. 2, 4, in, and out. 2, 4, in, and out. In and out. In out. Keep going. Full breath all the way in. Exhale. As your exhale, just relax or go in and out. You might feel some physical changes in your body. And out. In and out. In, out. Let's pick up one more time. So in, 2, out, 2. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. One more time. In, out, in, out. Another 30 seconds at full speed. Count you down. Keep breathing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep breath all the way in. Deep inhale. We're gonna hold it. Keep holding. Again, when we exhale, we're just gonna hum through our nose. So slow release. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just close your eyes. Slow your breathing down. And I invite you to think of or remember a moment in your life where you experienced an immense amount of gratitude. Think of a moment you experienced an immense amount of gratitude. It could have been the birth of a child, something you accomplished, something someone did for you, a good friend, time in nature. Just go to that moment, that first one that comes up. Just be completely present. Who's there with you? Visualize the sights and sounds, and smells and colors. Just allow time to completely stop. Just bring your awareness to what the feeling of gratitude feels like in your body. What does the feeling of gratitude feel like in your body? So just slowly bring that feeling up to the center of your chest. Take a deep inhale in as if you're breathing through your heart, just allowing that feeling of gratitude to expand through your whole body. And again, breathing into your heart, just allowing that feeling to expand. Just allow yourself to just sit in this higher vibrational frequency of gratitude. Slowly bring your awareness back into your body. And you might want to stay there a little bit longer. You can, if you like. When you're ready, you can just open your eyes. And I hope you were able to feel something in that experience. A few things you may have felt. Just a change in something in your body as you start to breathe. Did you feel a shift somewhere in your body? Did something change or feel different? That's awareness, right? Did you feel your mind clear at all as you're focusing on the breath? Did that monkey mind slow down a little bit? When we got to the end of each breath hold, we were feeling a sense of calm. And when we moved into the meditation, did you feel anything? Some people it'll be like very obvious. Some people it's like, okay, there's just a subtleness to it. And this is a practice in awareness and mindfulness. Just really tapping into these emotions that exist within us, so we have access to it anytime. the more we can find ourselves in these higher vibrational frequencies like love, joy, gratitude, you know, you're creating that environment for your body to heal, to expand, to grow, to create. When we stay in the lower vibrations of worry, fear, doubt, we're creating those kind of environments. And we think about that more. We attract that more because our brain is thinking, hey, this is what you want. It's the program you're putting in. So by starting each morning with like 5 minutes of breath work and just being grateful for one thing, it's going to change the whole trajectory of your day.
Mm.
All right. How did it go?
That was lovely. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, in the change of state in such a short amount of time. Thank you. Uh, that is, yeah, really profound. And, you know, definitely, I like that you gave the disclaimers. Don't do that while driving. And it really does take that much time to feel lighter, more present. Everything slows down. Did for me. So I really thank you for sharing that with us. And I look forward to many more with our community. And folks, if you got to share this one with a loved one. So please think of somebody today to share the gift Giovanni and Elemental Rhythm. I want to just thank you for coming on and sharing this wisdom and and the techniques and just your joy and your presence. So really super appreciate you. And I love that our circles are coming closer together as we are talking about raising that vibration and the consciousness and the love quotient really is what it comes down to. So thank you, Giovanni. Any last parting words for our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, so it's just one breath at a time. You can improve just each breath after breath. If you just be a little more conscious, a little more intentional, like it's just that next breath, and that will build momentum into great change and transformation. And no matter where you're at now, um, you can improve and get better, and it's just up to you. Really, it's really up to you. And I've seen it with my own eyes from people from the darkest depths of despair to people who are already having the most amazing and abundant lives make it even better. you
Mm.
know it's available to everyone. You just have to do it. That's it. You just got to choose to do it and explore. And if you want to connect with me, I'm mainly on Instagram at Elemental Geo. You can find me on Facebook and probably YouTube and Google my image, and I'll probably show up somewhere.
We'll put all of those in the show notes. And Giovanni, thank you so much. Much joy and blessings. And until next time, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.